Welcome to Spirit Outspoken, where we dive deep into the realms of spirituality, healing, and the beautiful chaos we call life. From ancient traditions to modern practices, we are going to explore it all. Whether you're a newbie or a seasoned seeker, you're guaranteed to find something that inspires, challenges, and intrigues you here. So grab your favorite beverage, find a cozy spot to curl up, and join us for Spirit Outspoken. Welcome back to Spirit Outspoken. Today, we're honored to have Chelsey Power, an incredible Australian-based healer and practitioner of kinesiology and somatic therapy. Chelsey believes that the body remembers long after the mind forgets, and her work is deeply rooted in listening to the body's wisdom to unlock true healing. With a trauma-informed and compassionate approach, Chelsey helps clients move beyond symptoms to uncover the root cause of their emotional and energetic blocks. Her sessions are rich, engaging, and deeply transformative, allowing people to process past experiences that leave them feeling stuck, broken, or overwhelmed. Drawing from her own lived experiences with trauma, Chelsey brings an unparalleled depth of empathy and understanding to her work. She is committed to both personal and professional growth, ensuring she holds space with integrity and skill. In this episode, we dive into how trauma is stored in the body, the power of kinesiology and somatic healing, and practical ways you can begin tuning into your body's messages for healing and transformation. If you're ready for a profound conversation on healing from the inside out, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Rachel and I are so excited to have Chelsey Power with us from Mana Temple. This is the first time Spirit Outspoken is going international, and we couldn't be more excited to have Chelsey be our first guest. So Chelsey, welcome.
Hello, all the way from Australia. I'm really happy to be here and have this conversation with you girls.
Yes, us too. So we told you this the first conversation we had. Rachel and I have been following your Instagram. Highly recommend it, you guys. We'll put the details in the podcast notes. But Chelsey's branding, the way that she delivers her message around healing and trauma, like it just beautiful bite-sized chunks of daily reminders that you can integrate into your life. We found fascinating, and it's just beautiful to look at. I mean, it's so cohesive. It's really just gorgeous. And it's interesting because it's sort of, a duality of you're hitting really heavy topics, but it's delivered in such a peaceful, beautiful way that, I don't know, it's just really appealing. So like we said, we've just been really enthralled with you for a while. So excited to have you.
Thank you. It's a lovely compliment. It's an interesting job, social media presence. So I've learned how to manage that on top of everything else that I do.
Yeah, it is a learning curve. So can we just start by having you describe your practice in a little bit more detail, how you got started, and really just what our listeners can learn about this spiritual healing practice?
Yeah, sure. So I am a multi-modality practitioner. I've been in the game for around 12 years and acquired a few certifications along the way. But my foundation training is in kinesiology. And for those who don't know what kinesiology is, essentially we use the body's magnetic or energetic receptors to understand stress or ease in the body. So when I work with the body, this is how kinesiology works. The body will send out stress receptors when it is in a disagreeing state. So if I was to say to you while testing your body in a kinesiology way, can you say my name is Bob? Your body will naturally reject that. And the energy in the body dips. And you can feel that and test it with kinesiology. If we were to say that I love chocolate, and you really do, you'll have a really strong response, which is a positive response. And so we can use kinesiology to help us understand what areas in your life are creating a real stress response, or your environment, or people that you interact with, or the way that you think. So that's the basic, that's it in a nutshell. And that's the basis of my work. And then I bring a somatic overlay, which essentially means, how does this feel in my body? How does this statement feel in my body? How does this interaction feel in my body? How does this memory feel in my body? And we start to create a landscape and a mapping and understanding of how do our experiences reflect in our body. And if you use kinesiology, well, is this stressful, or am I in agreement with this? Is this good for me? We're essentially using the body as a radar to help us navigate and change things in our lives.
So when you're talking about the kinesiology portion of this, is that
Mm.
more on like a subconscious level? And then the somatic is more of a cognitive practice?
Yes. So kinesiology is subconscious in the way that it uses the brain in the parts that we don't really have online thinking. So
Okay.
there are all these other background mechanics. So think of it like your heart beats and keeps you alive, but you don't actively have to think about your heart beating. There are whole other systems that are working in the background for us. Kinesiology taps into those and understands them, or brings insight into what's happening in us behind, how our brain works.
So when
Yes.
you're a somatic kinesiologist,
You blend them together, yeah.
we spoke with someone who was a somatic psychotherapist. So that would be
Yes.
more just the kind of mental processing and awareness of what you're feeling in your body. Is
Yes.
that correct? That's kind of
Yep,
how it's
correct.
different. So this, by combining them, you can really access some really deep parts of yourself that you're just not aware of.
And so the coolest thing, and I get really excited about it, is particularly in the way that I use kinesiology, is that we're looking for specific emotions, and then where has the body housed them? So when we feel an overwhelming emotion, there has to be a process that the body goes through for it to dissipate. What happens most of the time actually is that we're overwhelmed, our process doesn't kick in, and then we store. That's how we get through it. I don't want to feel this feeling. It's too hard. It's too overwhelming. And the body says, hey, that's too much for us. Let me house it somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And so in kinesiology, we can map which emotion is stored in which organ. We can even take it further and understand at what age did you store that? How many times has it been an issue for you? And you can pinpoint into, is it with a particular parent? Is it with a particular person? Maybe it was the first day of school. Maybe it was riding your bike home and you were
Wow.
late. Like, you can find these memories and find the story, what I call the body story, so that you can understand them and then finish the processing. So
That's
kinesiology is really, really particular.
Yeah. So, okay. So, are you doing like some type of muscle testing to pinpoint it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So, is it a mixture of somebody saying, okay, I have this physical ailment here? Or is this all just through subconscious communication, if you will, through the body's response to some stimuli through muscle testing that you're able to say,
Correct.
okay, interesting.
Yes. So a lot of it is it's body cues and unspoken, but it also depends. You have to be adaptable to how someone wants to heal. Some people really like to understand, and they need to follow the process in a healthy way. So you can use language to help them understand that. Like, what did you feel at 3? Who was that with? And so you can involve them in the process. I find a lot of the time I will come in and bring language in at the end after I've worked with the body through muscle testing and asking questions with my own intuition. And then I will bring the story at the end and then ask them, how does that resonate for you? The body is mostly always right. Sometimes it can confuse things and distort them depending on what we've gone through. But as I say to my clients, the body is really keeping the score. The body knows at times when it's been overwhelmed, and our brain sometimes will reinterpret not in a healthy way or in a confusing way. So we've got to lean in with the body first.
And
Yeah.
then when
It's
you're doing the
fun.
questions during that process, are you saying it out loud or just thinking it in your mind?
We think it in our mind,
Okay.
especially because we move quite quickly. And so there is sequences and protocols that we go through, and there are general patterns that we understand in kinesiology that help us get to an answer. So it's not just, say, someone lies on the bed with a sore shoulder and we start asking the bodies a series of questions. There's protocols that we go through to set up an outcome. And it could be things like asking the body, is this an energetic stress? Is this an emotional stress? Is this a psychological stress? is this a muscular stress? And so we can start kind of like playing Guess Who. I guess if you played that game.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Just played it this weekend.
you go through the body in a series of questions that then open what I call pathways, and then you follow the pathway. The body loves to leave breadcrumbs and clues as to where it's felt these certain experiences. And depending on the kinesiologist and how good you get with your intuition, it can be quite easy, or sometimes the body can send you in loops. It's not always straightforward because we're complex creatures.
Do you notice that certain emotions tend to be stored in certain areas, or is it unique and different for everybody?
It can be unique, but the body, because we're a species, it has a particular pattern. So let's say the lungs, for instance, are really common for holding grief, really common for holding sadness, really common for holding uncried tears. So they can be very wet and mucousy with all these tears that we've suppressed over time. The liver is renowned for being angry and really emotional. So if we find people who have big emotional outbursts, will always find a dysfunction in the liver. The bladder holds a lot of fear and anxiety. And you can read that with kinesiology. Certain organs, yeah, and this is coming down to Chinese medicine too, that has an overlay. They will have their particular emotions that they hold, but because we're not always consistent, sometimes you can find that there's something else there. It's not important to know why. It's just important to heal it. You don't always get the answer to the question in a way that you want, but you just have to go with what the body gives you.
Yeah. Yes. So when we first spoke, you had some really interesting perspectives on trauma. And I mean, speaking about your line of work and what people are really coming in to heal, a lot of it's based on past trauma. I'm curious, what traumatic experiences are people most often looking to heal? Is it parental? Is it relationship? What are the most common?
As a practitioner, we generally attract a type of clientele for the space that we can hold. So I have gone through severe trauma in my childhood. Therefore, the clients that I attract are generally people who have a similar type of trauma. It's not always the same. So not every kinesiologist will work with trauma. I am quite unusual in that way because of all the other things that I do as well. But the most common that I see in my clinic is generally childhood trauma. So it's adults who have grown up that now reflect on their childhood and perhaps don't have any memory at all, are recognizing that as they've become parents, what they went through as children is really distressing, serious levels of neglect or emotional abuse, and people coming out of that authoritarian age where parents ruled by fear and by physical discipline. I work with a lot of people who suffer from that, who may have not realized that it affected them in the way that it did until now they're a lot older, really in their 30s to 40s.
That's such a fascinating line of work because all of us have gone through traumatic experiences. And as adults, maybe we don't even remember certain things. Like for me personally, I don't think I went through a particularly traumatic childhood, but there are periods of my childhood that I don't remember very well. And I'm like, do I just have memory issues or was I having a hard time with something going on as a child that I cannot reflect appropriately on? This is a fascinating healing technique because I don't necessarily have to be cognitively aware of everything that happened to seek treatment based on what you've discussed. So I think this is something people should explore probably before. And we talked about this too, the difference between Australia and the United States before seeking sometimes Western medicine. Share a little bit about the cultural differences because you said something that was fascinating about how oftentimes this is where people start. And I feel like the United States, like we don't even know about most of the stuff, right? And this is a big part of what Rachel and I are trying to do is really shed light on a lot of these really impactful alternative methods of healing. I just would love for you to share a little bit about that so people can kind of learn why people are more open in Australia versus maybe in the United States. I'd love your perspective on that.
I find that wild because of how common it is here for us in Australia. Why it's different, I'm not sure. I think that comes down to a belief system as a society, perhaps.
Yeah.
You can walk out onto any street here in Australia and you'll find every town will have some form of holistic practitioner, and multiple of them offering their services. Things that are here that are really common. Acupuncture is really common. Chinese medicine is really common. Herbalism is really common. Naturopaths, really common as well. Any of your osteos, chiros, we use those as well. People are more inclined to lean into a body-based practice than we are to go to a GP, with a general practitioner. I find, and maybe you can help me understand, most of our ailments or dis-ease that we feel is in the body, muscular or emotional base. How can a doctor help you with that? Unless you're looking to have something prescribed for mental health reasons. But still, if you're feeling it in the body, why wouldn't you seek out a body practitioner?
I think that's $1 million question, but I think ultimately it fundamentally comes down to the belief or openness around energy. Like the bottom line of, Rachel and I have talked about this on past episodes is it materialism, Rachel?
Yeah.
Right. Like if you can't
Yeah.
see it, we don't believe it, right? Like that's sort of the mainstream thing that we're trying to challenge. We will feel energy, but we don't necessarily think that we can heal energy. I don't know. Like I'm also trying to figure out why there's this resistance, right? And a lot of it could be fear-based. This looks different. This feels different. I don't know what it is. I'm used
Well,
to going to my GP, but I don't know.
maybe they can't trust it. But I think, if you think of why does anyone want to take a medication or see a doctor, is generally because there's pain there. So they're wanting to fix something. Medication does offer, well, it has been sold to offer a faster solution. So here, take this pill and then you don't have to feel this thing, right? Let's look at anxiety. For instance, it's not a pleasant experience to be severely anxious. It's not a pleasant experience to have anxiety attacks. They're quite frightening and debilitating for people. If the only information that you have to heal that is through anti-anxiety medication, then yes, you are going to lean that way.
Mm-hmm.
What if you were to look further into it and ask yourself, well, why is it that I have anxiety? Where does that come from? Why is my nervous system in such an overwhelmed state that I can't handle going to the shopping center? Why is my brain not working where I can't even write a list to go shopping and go to the supermarket? So people need to start asking questions why, and I think we do that really well here in Australia.
Yes.
It's like, why do I feel this way? Let me dive back into my childhood, actually. There are heaps of answers in there for me to look at. It's really critical with me growing up, and now I have low self-esteem. Okay, I need to heal that. Versus I now have a perfectionism issue, which gives me anxiety, and then I get mind blocks, and then my only solution is medication, which is a very now-based treatment. Like, let's just heal you today. The next 5 minutes, you'll feel better. But you have to be willing to do the work and explore and take things further and be able to sit in the uncomfortable in a safe space with someone that you trust who can guide you through what those experiences are. And you can absolutely do that on medication too. It's important for some people to be on medication so that they're not continually suffering. And then you can do the hard work, change your perspective, heal the body. And then maybe it's not a solution for you that you have to stay on forever.
Mm-hmm.
Or you've got alternatives into how you work with medication and yourself. But medication really, I think for the most part, where we get stuck is when we use it as an only solution.
Yes.
That's when we get stuck. That's it,
Yes.
as an solution.
I think, you hit something on the head here with, I do think, Jasa, in our culture and in our way that we practice medicine, it's very much we treat the symptom, right? Like, oh, you have high blood pressure, here's a pill. Oh, you have high cholesterol, here's another pill. And I feel like we're just starting to get to the point where we're starting to ask, well, what's the root cause of this? And so it's just so backwards to what we've in our American culture have been raised to believe. Like you go to the doctor, they're the authority, they're the expert, they're the scientist. But the truth of the matter is there just haven't been enough studies. Like they weren't willing to pay for the studies to support these alternative methods. now that they're starting to do it, we're starting to realize that there is so much science behind all of these things that people claim are woo-woo or out there. And I would be interested too for you to explain, because if someone goes to your website and they're watching you do your work, they might be like, wow, what is she doing? But it's actually a very scientific process that you've talked about. So can you kind of expand on that a little bit and just share that with our
Yeah,
listeners?
sure. If you do go to my Instagram and have a look at how I work, you generally see me cueing or touching in a very light way certain points along the spine. And sometimes people will have a movement response, or sometimes they'll have a breath response. And so from outside looking in, it looks very woo-woo, I guess you could say. Like, well, why do they respond that way when she touches this way? But it is all with purpose. Our nervous system runs through our spinal column, and we've got hundreds of thousands of nerves that are coming out of our spinal cord and our spine itself. And when you put pressure on some of these nerves, you're creating a response that then the body opens up to, or actually closes down to. It's up to the body and how it's working. And so me touching these certain areas of the body and understanding what I'm doing, for instance, if I touch around let's say the sacrum, right, tailbone, there's many windows of ease here. So there's many nerves here that make us feel at peace. We're inclined to take more breath. We're inclined to feel more safe and grounded when we're cueing certain areas there. And so if you were really tense on the bed and you're lying there, and then I come and touch these certain cues around the sacrum, you will watch your body actually just melt. Like all takes a big breath and then it eases. Or sometimes the tailbone will lift ever so slightly to meet the touch because it's seeking that peace that you're asking the body to receive. And so all I'm doing is reading the body like a map and understanding where the body has a certain response and then asking the body to meet me there. And then the client is simply responding in a beautiful somatic way. So there is energy involved in it too, but there's energy in a hug. I could hug you. And depending on the type of hug that I give you, I could give you an anxious hug and you might respond in an anxious way. I could give you a sad hug. I could be grieving and you would hold me different, right? Or I could give you a warm embrace and then you would match that with me.
Yes.
And so that's energy. And then that's the same with what's happening on the tables. Like, can I get this person to feel a certain way in this space? And can they receive that?
That's so cool.
That is so cool. So are you channeling any kind of energy, or is there any kind of energy exchange from you? Or are you merely touching certain spots and then seeing how the individual
How they respond.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say that with my kind of work, and I am Reiki trained, so that is different where you are working or increasing energy in a body.
Okay.
But in this type of work, what I do now and how I work is that I really just become a conduit. So I am empty. It's not about me. I can't give this person my energy. And that's dangerous because my energy is for me. But what I can offer them is a healing vibration. I can offer them safety. I can offer them peace. I can offer them calm. And then what does their body do when they also enter that state? So our body can really only heal in windows of ease or regulation. And the fastest way that we can do that is through co-regulation. So me being a safe space for you to bring your nervous system down, and then me staying in neutral and non-judgmental. And that opens the way for your higher self, your innate wisdom to then come through your body.
That is beautiful, Chelsey. I'm booking a ticket to Australia tomorrow.
I think what's important to remember, I am not the healer. I do nothing. I only offer space and I guide. You are the healer. Your body heals. I can't do any of that for you, nor do I make any of that more accessible to you or not. That's all your body's choice and you. So if you're open to receive, if you're open to heal, then your body naturally will start to raise its own vibration on the table so that it can do that for you. I'm simply a witness and a bit more of a guide into you allowing yourself to do that. I can tell you where you're stuck so you can get out of your own way so that then you can heal.
So I'm assuming you can't do this virtually. Is that correct?
You can do
Oh,
this
you can?
virtually. Yes. Because again, I'm not a healer, you are. And so I, from the other side of the world through a computer, can still cue you the same with my words. I can
Okay.
still ask you to anchor your breath into another space of the body. Your body is doing all the work. I can connect to you energetically, but I'm doing that with you now just through talking.
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
connected to you.
absolutely.
We're
Absolutely.
exchanging energy in the way that we're doing that, and we can feel each other's vibration
Mm-hmm.
through really excited, through more calm, more attuned listening. Like we're shifting with each other, you know, every few seconds. And so we can do that in a healing session. We can do that in a meditative state together.
So, what we've observed also is that there is this hunger, this total need for stuff like this. And I really feel like people are waking up. They're learning the same thing that worked for me 15 years ago isn't working for me anymore. I need something different. I need something deeper. I need something more fulfilling. So, to know that you can still guide people through this beautiful process, even virtually, is so helpful because the next question our listeners are going to ask is like, okay, Chelsey's amazing. How can I find a Chelsey here? But it's so good to know that they can connect with you no matter where they are. So I love what you were saying about how you are not necessarily the quote unquote healer, that our bodies know how to heal itself. You are just
Mhm.
merely a guide to help us reach our optimal vibration. So our souls, our higher self, or spirit, whatever you want to say, is able to navigate that healing naturally. So that's really empowering. People are empowered to do this themselves, and they just need to trust that they can do it. But that is really where you come in, is you help them see that they can do this on their own, which I think is the coolest part about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's think of you as a country and maybe the way that you've been taught to think about your body, right? It's not the most empowering,
Right.
I imagine, right? It's that your body is sick, that you are injured, that you need help to heal. So when you think about what I just offered in saying that you are the healer, then that totally flips that story on its head.
Yes. Yes, it does. And I'm telling you, once there's an awakening, a lot of people aren't going to like this because think about big pharma and a lot of these things that are
Yes.
absolutely driven to keep people sick, convince them that they're sick, convince them that they have no alternative than to take the medicines that they're making billions off of, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just this whole loop. But one of the things I want to make sure we touch on that you brought up in our first intro session was that there can be certain blocks to people's healing. Like
Mhm.
these are intrinsic, sometimes like these are collective consciousness type stuff, right? That are fear-based, potentially from even religion, right? I would love to
Mhm.
hear your perspective because I thought you did such a good job of sort of taking the temperature down a little bit around, okay, not only I think we've established that people don't need to fear this, but why potentially religion or belief systems that are ingrained in religion can create a block to one's healing.
Yeah. Big question. Let's see if we can. Big question. And where do we go with this? Well, for your listeners who are listening, a little bit about me is I know religion really well. I grew up as a pastor's kid. I was in church from the age of 3 to 18 when I left on my own. And I really learnt a lot, saw a lot, and I also witnessed a lot that I didn't agree with. And so coming out of that now, I'm in my late 30s, I've had to do almost a lifetime of healing around this certain time in my life. So I get very passionate about this topic. I think in our first chat, we really did a whole big conversation about it. But if we talk to just healing on its own and blocks, I think from my experience and from the clients that I've had that are working through religion as part of their history, I think we can all understand and agree on that fear plays a really big part. in a religious journey. So fear of stepping outside the boundaries, fear of going against the narrative, fear of hell, heaven and hell, and where am I going to end up? And that gets programmed through you. And so when it comes to healing, and fear is a big part of that, and your narrative is that healing should only come through God, well, then how do I go outside of that and seek other treatment? And what if working with someone who is, let's say, energy and something that isn't really encouraged in the church, well, then that's bad for me and I can't access that. And so there's other whole parts of my body that I have to deny to hold that story as well. So I have to deny that I don't have an energetic system. Nuts, because it's true. We have different systems in our body that only work through energy. Emotions are energy. And so I think you have to cut out a whole piece of important information sometimes to hold a narrative that says that healing can only be accessed this way. And so our own blocks really come down to, well, maybe there's pieces in our story that are missing where I can't connect all the dots, or I can't flow, that I can't heal it in a fearful state. There's no way. As I said before, you can only heal in windows of ease and regulation. That's the only way the body can come into homeostasis. That's science. I can't heal you in a stressed state. So if you are fearful and ingrained to believe that everything outside of a church or religious narrative is evil, then how do you access healing at all?
That's exactly right. And I think, in religion, like we talked about even previously, isn't bad, but the dogma could be, right? Like that's where it's either this or it's wrong. It's either very specifically within the confines of what the church has specified, or it's evil and it's something that should be feared. It's just really up to interpretation and your own belief system. And that's something that Rachel and I really focus on, is like using your own intuition, your own inner compass to tell you what feels right and what feels safe and what doesn't. And just talking with you, Chelsey, you feel like I'm literally like, I'm going to come to Australia to spend time with you, because I know you're not calling yourself a healer, but you have this healing, safe energy that I feel like it's a tragedy that people wouldn't explore this as a path just based on what they were told was right or wrong as a child, as a teen, or even now as an adult. I know it was a really big question and I didn't mean to put you on a spot, but I do think getting your perspective on that is so interesting, because it will continue to help people challenge things that they've always been told that they haven't necessarily personally agreed with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, healing is a mindset. So taking us back, and if we talk about woo-woo, if we think about when we were talking about laying hands on the church, right? That could be seen as very woo-woo to anyone outside church.
Yes.
And there's not a lot of science to back that up. So how come that would be deemed acceptable, but Reiki wouldn't?
Exactly.
When it's exactly the same thing. So we look at the church scenario, someone comes to have the hands laid on them and prayed over. You have a congregation meet with a mutual intention to raise a healing vibration. So they are giving love, they're asking for it. This person is then receiving. And so healing may be available to them because they've entered a healing and safe state. And then when we look at Reiki, so we go outside the church, where this happens also, someone comes to a practitioner to receive. The practitioner raises a healing vibration and asks their body to match it. And so they do, and healing may be available to them. This is exactly the same, what happens in the church and what happens out in, another practitioner's building. It's the same frequency. Like healing is a frequency of its own.
Yes.
It's all working with energy. God, universal light, that is also energy. It's an energetic presence. You can't have one energy that is right and then all the rest wrong. It doesn't work that.
Amen, sister. I was just going to say, preach, Chelsey.
Yeah.
Preach.
It doesn't work like that. So universal energy, we can have energies that are denser than others. We can have some that are maybe more attached to lower high frequencies, but there's a place for all of it here, right? The world and our universe lives in perfect balance. So that if there are angelic frequencies as above, so below, there will be darker frequencies too. So it's up to you what you dabble in. You have free will with that.
Yeah, follow your intuition, because there have been things, whether it's, within the confines of someone in a church setting, where I'm like, ooh, that doesn't feel right. And on the flip side too, going out and exploring other things. And you can just feel and you sense where it's safe, where it's loving. And I feel like as we've done this, it's like follow the love, follow the peace. That's how you really start to weave some of this incredible healing and finding wonderful people to work with, maybe in some new and unique different ways that you've never considered before. But instinctively, your soul or your spirit, you know what feels good and what doesn't.
Yeah, well, taking us back to kinesiology, where your body feels everything, you got to listen to your body when you're walking into a space. And how does that feel for you, this type of healing modality? It doesn't have to be right? It just has to be right for you.
Yeah.
That's it. Like
Yes.
we have a culture here in Australia and maybe, other countries where we have modalities that are competing against each other to be more right. Who's more right? Who has more truth? But that's not a way to look at it. We got to understand that everybody is different and every modality can serve your purpose in your journey at one point or another. It depends on where you are in your healing journey, what you're open to, and how you are received by the practitioner and how that feels for you. So there's no right and there's also no wrong. There's just learning.
Yeah.
Let's say that you had acupuncture and you don't really like needles and you walked in and your gut was telling you this isn't the right place for me, but I want to explore it. And then you have not a great experience or feel like it does nothing. It wasn't a wrong experience. That's a learning. It's like, okay, so my discernment in the beginning told me that this was going to be a good idea. I still chose to go through with it. I had a fearful response. I had no result. I'm now going to put that in my information box as a modality that doesn't really work for me right now, but it is incredible for others.
Yes. Yes. I think that that's so spot on. And as we are also investigating all of these different spirituality techniques and modalities and perspectives and theories, everything, right? Rachel and I are learning too, right? And what might be a perfect fit for me may be different for Rachel. Like I've learned recently, I love talking to intuitive individuals. And I've also realized, like, the fortune telling kind of stuff, like, oh, hey, Jason, you're going to go visit California in a month, right? For me, it's sort of a fun little dopamine hit. But what I'm getting a lot of soul nourishment from is growth and somebody challenging me and helping me think differently, right? So I am still also navigating, right? Like, what is the perfect spirituality for me? And, I've talked very openly too. My son, was diagnosed with cancer. I think I shared that with you, Chelsey, about 2 years ago. And when it comes to healing, it's like a blend of Christian scriptures that I feel really empowered around, and also meditative energy healing, where I am visualizing sending him gold healing energy and literally putting my hands over him when he was in the hospital to send him love, and praying over his chemo and sending energy to his chemo, right? It's like I'm just making my own little mixed bag of, things that work. But I felt so empowered because I was able to research. I was able to see the things that felt really good to me. So even if you don't necessarily need something right now and it's not acute, it's always good to challenge oneself to grow spiritually by learning, not necessarily just deciphering what's right and wrong, but by learning and investigating, because you will naturally feel like, okay, I'm going to, like you said, put that on a shelf for a rainy day one day when I think that modality or that technique might be helpful, right? So like I have a lived experience of doing this and mixing and learning and investigating and being able to draw on those things when I really needed them in a way that just felt really impactful, right? So this is really what we're challenging you to our listeners to do. So you guys, like, keep learning, keep investigating, because if something looks different but intriguing, see what it's about, right? And if you learn that it's not for you, you're not going to go to hell. Like, I don't
No,
you know.
no. And like the most important thing to remember is that the wisdom is available for all of us. All these modalities are here for you. You get to shop and pick and choose which one works for you. You get to invest in the ones that feel amazing. You get to then integrate the ones that feel good for you. Why should your healing journey be only limited to one thing while the rest of us have access to it all? How come I'm allowed to go into the healing library of hundreds of thousands of different frequencies or hundreds of thousands of different modalities, and you decide that you can only read one book from one shelf and that's it?
Yes.
So you're cutting yourself off to an abundant supply of healing when you don't want to explore. Like you're doing it to yourself because you're scared to walk down that aisle in the library and choose this book.
Yeah.
Why? You're allowed to look too. You can't just look. You don't have to engage.
In my own life, since I've started doing this, is you can also tweak it and make it your own. Like, you can be inspired by other healing modalities and still put it through a lens of your own faith or religion, if that's how you want to do it. You really have freedom here to explore and make it the most meaningful, impactful thing for you. And just having decision and control over that, I think, is huge for people to hear that message over and over and over again. You can do this.
Yes.
It's okay.
And even though, like in my circumstance, well, I don't align with religion so much now because of my lived experience, there are parts of it that I absolutely do still believe in because they are beneficial for all. So laying on hands, of course, when I lay hands on people for healing. Chelsey, you were just saying you were laying hands on your boy in hospital. There is healing to be had there. Prayer, I still pray. I pray over my children. I pray over my clients. I know that I'm dealing with energy that is beyond me. So I will communicate with it and I will pray. When I don't have the answer in clinic with someone, I'll pray. And I might say the creator, or I might say the universe, or I say, creator, let this person receive in a way that I can't understand. Help me find the answers that I can't see. What is this body telling me? Sometimes I get so stuck, I may just pray that they receive whatever it is that they need. Or I pray that the creator guides my hands in a way that's beneficial to this person. I still pray, even though religion isn't a big part of my life anymore. But I do communicate with the universe and the energy that is around us all the time. How do I conduct that? Where is my intention going with this energy? Yes, when my children are sick, absolutely pray over them. I pray over them every day for protection. Spirit guide them, help them make good choices, help them feel loved. And so you can pick and choose. Don't box yourself when it comes to healing. You can still love your God and love your faith, but please just look outside into the other things that are available to you too. Most modalities in the healing world, you can trace back to some kind of religious beginning or vice versa. Most of it's been channeled. Chiropractic has been channeled. Osteo, there's a part of it too. Channeling is only receiving wisdom from a higher source, which is most of how the Bible was written.
I know. That's the irony, right? Like I talk about that a lot, where I think about that a lot. Is I'm like, it's kind of ironic is that the book of Revelations is probably the most wild and out there book that was written. And it was all channeled information, literally channeling information and writing about the end times with all of like these really mystical images and crazy things that are happening. And yet now, today, we have been told that looking outside the confines of what was done however many centuries ago, right, is no longer relevant. And I think that that's really where we have to challenge our thinking, is that if we believe that something could have been channeled that was powerful wisdom and information from a higher source to individuals that weren't just Jesus. These were other disciples and individuals that had a hand in writing the many different books that can still exist today. And it even says in the Bible, the same power that lived in Jesus lives in us, right? You can't have one without the other. I just love, Chelsey, how you were kind of talking about your own personal journey, because your practice is fascinating. Obviously, this season is about alternative methods to healing, but you sharing your story, I think, is so powerful too, because many people were raised in a faith or religion that no longer necessarily aligns to who they are today. So they abandon everything. Then they're just like, well, I don't know what to do because that didn't feel right. So now what? I just have to power through life without any prayer, without any faith or anything. And I think what you said of hanging on to the things that really felt good or really resonated with you deeply, and you still carry that through today, even though you don't describe yourself as quote unquote religious, is such an important message for people to hear. So just sort of your lesson of, you could still pray, you still have faith, you still have all of these things, you can learn and investigate, is such a really big thing that we're always trying to impart. So I'm very appreciative that you shared your story, because I think people are going to really benefit from that.
Can I say on that, to help people whenever
Yeah.
they feel lost? When you do things with good intent, when you have good intention and a pure heart, you can bounce between all these different things and pick and choose what works for you. Use your intuition and your intention to guide you, and to pray. When you're lost, just pray, just ask. So
Yes.
it doesn't have to be a religious prayer, but it can be your prayer.
Yes.
Right? What is it that you're calling in today for you? This is what we look at intention setting and other modalities, right? But at the end of the day, it's still your prayer. So what is your prayer today? What are you calling in? What do you want to be surrounded by? Is there wisdom that you are ready to receive? Right? We have access to this all the time. So you could pray whether this modality feels good for you.
Yes.
I'm going to put that on my heart. I'm going to sit with that for a little bit. I want to try Reiki. It looks interesting, but I'm hesitant. I'm going to sit with that. I'm going to see how that feels. I'm going to think about it and pray on it every day until I feel like, I have an answer in that space.
Yeah.
Just communicate with the universe with what you want.
We're like obsessed with you, Chelsey. I don't understand. Seriously, what if Jason and I just like pop out of a shrub by your office one day and we're like,
yes, that would be amazing.
then
Two short, psychotic women from the U.S. just board a plane and appear on your doorstep.
Maybe
it might
need to
happen.
come to the States and share some of this Australian love and holistic thinking over there.
Yeah.
I think you do. And that's a big thing. What we're doing too is we're branching out, we're doing events, and we see ourselves as almost like the bridge between people that need something, want something, or don't know where to go, and healers that have amazing things to offer individuals. And we've seen such a response from our community, but genuinely, it's just connecting with people who are in pain or need healing, and these amazing healers and practitioners and individuals that have beautiful messages to share, perspectives to challenge us, or hands-on techniques to help us heal. I mean, can you tell we're so excited about this? I mean, really, it's like we're so passionate about it because it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're offering healing to people, right? You're offering something to people and asking them to meet you where you are and then to move forward. So you are offering a pathway to many different things. That's healing.
Yeah.
You're offering growth. You're challenging people's thoughts. You're offering them another perspective. And that's all we can really do as guides on people's paths.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how about you think about this? How does this feel for you? And then you're empowering people to make choices for themselves.
That's
and
right.
Also, doing a little bit of this, hands up in the air, 2 thumbs up. Yeah, you can challenge what you thought was true. You get to change your mind. This is the number one thing I teach in my clinic with people is you get to change your mind. Today, you can wake up and say, I really believe this. Tomorrow, you can wake up and say, actually, I believe this. It is okay. How will you ever know that this was for you unless you sit with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you are offering every modality on this space, then that's, it's beautiful. It's a buffet.
That's it. That's it. I love it.
You're complex. Like, let's look at psychological, muscular, skeletal, emotional, childhood, future, mother, wife. Like, look at all the pieces of you that need different things. How can you only be boxed in one place to heal and to work through? You need a variety to meet all these different needs. So I encourage your listeners, ask questions, try new things. Don't be scared. Use your intuition the best that you can. And when there's hesitation, just sit on it, think on it, pray on it, see how it feels for you. But don't be afraid to explore.
So I was looking at your website and I was looking at that incredible online workbook that you have that it looks like people can do from the comfort of their own home.
Oh, yes. The online workbook, Untamed, actually could be fascinating for some of your readers to read. That is an ebook that I put together all around the hips and the pelvis and how we store emotions in this space of a woman's body. Right. So when I go and massage therapists would see this in their work and yoga teachers and maybe not understand what's going on. But let's say I connect with a certain place on the hips that is renowned for storing fear. You can release that or open that gateway where the body feels that and then processes it. So we can have these certain emotional blocks, guilt, shame, fear, anxiety, anger, resentment. They're all stored in certain places of the hips and pelvis. So I wrote this incredible ebook due to the demand that I was seeing in clinic, that this was a space that I was working on a lot with women. And it has 60 pages with over 30 somatic practices in there for you to guide yourself through and to work with this place in your body on your own. And it has all the metaphysical reasons as to, what's storing there, what it feels like, and then ways that you can process it so that you don't have to work with someone, or if you don't have access to me or other somatic practitioners, you still can work through this on your own. It's a common space that, especially where women house, because our womb is essentially our powerhouse, we're all renowned for blocking our creativity and feeling like insecure in the world. And it all comes from this particular space in the body.
So cool. Okay. We have a resource page on our website where we create documents or link things up so that people can start practicing some of these spiritual practices at home. So I think that would be a great resource for our listeners to try this in the comfort of their own environment and in their own time. Would be great.
Yeah, if you're hesitant to move into some of these other modalities, there are, not just me, but there are other practitioners that have resources for you to inquire about, read their ebooks, maybe do some of their practices at home. And does that feel good for you? And then maybe you're inclined to work with a practitioner like that in person. There's so many ways for you to dip your toes into some of these practices without having to go all the way in.
I love it.
That's a great point. This is amazing.
It was amazing.
You're such a gift, honestly. And I know I said this already, but really, like, your energy is beautiful. We talk about this a lot around certain healers and practitioners that just have a light about them. And you have that. And it comes through so well, even virtually. So,
Yeah,
this was
thank you.
such a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
you for sharing your incredible wisdom and
Yes.
insight with us, because I know that it will help a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
We hope this conversation with Chelsey left you feeling inspired and empowered to tune into your body's wisdom. A huge thank you to Chelsey for sharing her insights and experiences with us. If you found this episode valuable, we'd love for you to share it with a friend who might benefit from it. And don't forget to check out our resources page at spiritoutspoken.com, where we'll link to Chelsey's workbook so you can dive deeper into her offerings and connect with her directly. Looking ahead, Spirit Outspoken is practicing what we preach, and we're taking next week off for spring break to rest, recharge, and spend time with our families. We'll be back on April 9th with a brand new episode and we can't wait to share it with you. As always, thank you for being here, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're ready to take your spirituality to the next level, be sure to check out our website, spiritoutspoken.com. There you can download free educational resources, read our latest blog posts, and join the Spirit Outspoken community.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Spirit Outspoken to stay up to date on news, happenings, shenanigans, and all things Spirit Outspoken.